The government is shut down. Is this part of Trump's master plan? Blaze News Mandate starts right now. Welcome in, everyone. I'm Jill Savage, joined as always by Editor-in-Chief Matthew Peterson.
It's a happy hump day here. Happy Wednesday. I wish I hadn't seen a communist movie last night, but I did.
He went and saw the terrible Leo Ice movie. DC Politics editor Chris Bedford. All it took was one day for you to get thrown down there in the basement, and now we have Basement Bedford coming to us from DC every day.
It's the new thing, especially since my main floor is now a nursery for our baby, the neighbor's baby. And you know, Matt, you deserve whatever happened to you in there. I was wondering why you were so excited to spend an evening watching this movie. I like Leo too, but I mean, it seems like a lot.
What they do to him is, I'm not even going to speak about it.
I'm just sad because I feel like Basement Bedford, we're not going to get baby Josephine anymore. But the Democrats right now, they're basically stuck in the basement because at 12:01 a.m. this morning, the government shut down and the Democrats are simply at a loss for words.
Every Republican who's gone on TV the last 12 hours or so has called this the Schumer shutdown. What do you say about that name? Senator Schumer, can you hear me?
I can't hear.
Senator Schumer, can you hear me? I don't think Senator Schumer can hear me right now. Maybe the government shutdown included audio on Capitol Hill.
It certainly did. So did Schumer just hand the keys to the castle to Donald Trump? President Trump certainly believes so.
Well, the Democrats want to shut it down. So when you shut it down, you have to do layoffs. So we'd be laying off a lot of people that are going to be very affected. And the Democrats, they're going to be Democrats. As you know, this country, no country can afford to pay for illegal immigration, health care for everybody that comes into the country. And that's what they're insisting. And obviously, I have an obligation to not accept that. That would affect everybody. A lot of good can come down from shutdowns. We can get rid of a lot of things that we didn't want, and they'd be Democrat things.
There it is. That's the key there at the end, Matt, when you hear it. Oh, he can actually get rid of a lot of things. Oh, we have a lot of powers during a shutdown.
I love how Trump is taken to the rest vote argument, but he's saying, well, this is what happens. You shut the government down, then we get rid of a lot of things, and that's the way it's going to be. And if that's the new normal, then great, because it wasn't the norm in the past. So it's great that Trump's latched onto it.
Yeah, and it's all about health care for the Democrats. Let's go ahead and look at CNN. They had a headline out there that says, fact check, Trump falsely claims the Democrats want to give free health care to illegal aliens in the government shutdown battle. But as Trump claimed, they want health care for the illegals. But let's go ahead and listen to Representative Maxine Waters. She's never going to have an opportunity to rebuke this claim. Watch.
But aren't Democrats demanding health care for illegal aliens?
That's right. Democrats are demanding health care for everybody. We want to save lives. We want to make sure that health care is available to those who would die, but having the help of their government.
So you're good with the government shutdown, even if it means giving health care to people who aren't American citizens?
Well, that's what you're pushing on. What you're trying to do is you're standing here and you're trying to make me say that somehow we're going to put non-citizens over Americans. Quit it. Stop it. This is the kind of journalism we don't need.
No, I'm just
you're divisive.
Questions.
No, you're not.
Yeah, no,
you're being divisive. No, please. You don't need to ask that question. You're just trying to get controversy here. You're not going to get it from me. We want to save health care for all people.
Well, for all people, Chris, I think that we've heard this argument before, but at least the Democrats aren't being overdramatic about any of this.
No, they're not being overdramatic at all. It's just, it's kind of wild. They say it's not happening. This isn't happening anywhere, but you're not allowed to touch it because it's extremely important to the undocumented communities. They're speaking out of both sides of their mouth. And by the way, at least for now, they're not even talking to these undocumented communities, these illegal immigrant communities. That's a play for the votes of white liberal women. That's who they're talking to. That's the audience for so much of this stuff. It's not really plain as it's not as important in the day to day. You look, these Democrats will consistently say this is not even a thing. I'm looking right now, I got on my iPad the New York State of Health website of how to get healthcare and which government programs you can take advantage of if you're undocumented. I mean, this is something that states and Democrats are paying for. It's been a major problem, and the Republicans are going to fix it. Well, I do want to get back to the Rust vote plan at some point, but I won't go too far astray and give you a 5-minute answer.
No, let's go ahead and get into Russ vote right now because he is the man of the hour. So, Matt, if people don't really know, because we say his name on this show a lot, but just, he's the guy behind the scenes that is going to be having the best week right now of anybody in Washington, D.C.
Yeah, I mean, this is a guy who, as we've said before on the show, has experience. As Chris said yesterday, he's already been there, in the government. But people need to know the Office of Management and Budget is exceptionally powerful because they actually have to put together the budget, and that's where a lot of the money flows out of. So the initial DOGE excitement was looking at, money flow. Well, the actual organization that does this is the Office of Management and Budget, with which he is in charge of. And I think he's very prepared for this moment, because the key here is, the big picture is, you can talk about cutting the government all you want, but you have to know exactly what you're doing and what levers to press.
Yeah, and right now we can see that Russ Vogt is taking advantage of this opportunity. We see today that he's frozen $18 billion in New York City infrastructure plans. So if you're looking at Chuck Schumer and Hakeem Jeffries, well, there you go right there. They were tied to DEI measures there in the city. And he's just canceled $8 billion in the Green New Scam climate funding throughout a boatload of blue states, Bedford. So when you look at how he's actually operating right now, he's trying to be pretty effective in the first few hours of this government shutdown.
He is, and he's doing everything he can. He's definitely the cavalry general here, who's got the guys. He's raring to go. He's saying, Trump, just give the order and let me charge their lines. I want to dismantle the federal bureaucracy and every aspect of it that's not currently actually approved by Congress and isn't also serving the American interests and the American citizen. This is what he wants to do. My kind of cold water moment of realization today, the same thing we kind of had with the Chinese visas and with other aspects, is how far Russ is able to go is going to end up depending largely on President Trump himself. Now, I want to dismantle the federal bureaucracy. Russ wants to. You guys want to. Everyone, most of the people I would say who are watching right now or listening want to do that. But what President Trump wants most of all is going to be a deal. So he's got his finger on the trigger, and he's telling Democrats, listen, the funds go now. You're going to feel the squeeze in these infrastructure projects. You're going to feel the squeeze on these DEI programs. You're going to feel that squeeze for sure. It's not like what Obama did. Obama punished the normal American citizens. He's going to punish the Democrats who are using essentially American taxpayer money as their liberal slush fund to empower their own interests. But he hasn't yet given the order to do the big layoffs. You heard today, J.D. Vance, the vice president, was out there, and he said these notices can start going out in 2 days. Well, that's absolutely true. Caroline Levitt said they're working on it right now, and that's absolutely true. But that's almost like bombing the capital city at this point. That is tens of thousands and tens of thousands of jobs that would suddenly be eliminated. President Trump is still very much in deal-making attitude. So if Democrats want to drag this out for probably a week or two, then you might see the bureaucracy actually dismantled in a pretty long-lasting way. What we've been talking about at the show, what I've been writing about. But for now, he's not letting the cavalry fully charge. He's doing these pinprick strikes on New York and wherever else he wants, which is in the executive's prerogative. They get to decide how to triage that money. And it's always been that way. But he's not yet ordered the full-on assault that I kind of would like to see. I don't want the government to shut down for weeks. I don't want my military families and Social Security checks to struggle to get out and get paid. That's not great. but I do want to see dismantling. So now I'm torn. It's going to be a hard fight. It's going to be a hard tightrope to walk, and we'll see how the president makes that call.
Yeah, and let's take a deeper look at what Trump has on the table here, this opportunity, because we do see here that CNN headline that we had before. They were talking about, the Democrats, they want to give the health care to illegals, and actually it would broaden the health care access for immigrants with legal status, not undocumented immigrants. So this is, when we're talking about this, you guys, this is the Democrats' constituency. This is who they play to all the time. And if we look, we were talking about Chuck Schumer and Hakeem Jeffries. Well, we can add Ilhan Omar in there because her district is out there in Minnesota, in Minneapolis, and 50% of immigrants in St. Paul find themselves as the committed immigration fraud. So it's a bombshell ice sweep in the Minneapolis-St. Paul area, Matt. So we look at this. In the Twin Cities has over 82,000 Somalis alone. And when we go through this, the Democrats, they want the illegals in the healthcare and everything. But we were also talking about the census a little bit earlier, a few months ago on the show. All of this is tied together right now with this one issue.
Yeah. So what you have here is a system that as we know, where the Democrats know that the immigration is the number one issue because for them it's existential. They are going to give these people benefits. They already do give these people benefits. The fact we're still denying that they get benefits, is absolutely ridiculous. The whole point of bringing them in as indentured servants is that they will vote for you forevermore. That's the deal they want to make, and then they will take care of you with all kinds of government services and benefits, and then they're counted in the census. It's not dissimilar from the dynamic a long time ago when it came to slavery in the South. I mean, it really is like using people who are vulnerable to count towards your political power. And that's what they're doing. Everyone knows they're doing that now. It needs to be called out. And the budget fight, to the extent that it's about those benefits, is tied to this. It's existential for them. I think in order to get rid of this stuff, though, in order to create this structural reform, we do want to see a deal that makes sense. I'm curious, Chris. I mean, Russ Vought is saying apparently privately to the Republicans that he could do this in a day or two, right? They could start to fire people. But that also sounds to me, to your point, like, a threat, right, with a timeline that is hint, hint, you better come to the table. And I'm curious how serious you see the threat given the situation. I mean, he could do this and it would cause massive damage to their cause. Are they willing to come to the table, do you think, knowing that, as we've said for a while, they don't actually have much here, and that, in a few days they come back around? I mean, how long are they prepared to go with this sort of Damocles hanging over their head?
The fact that you had two more Democrats join John Fetterman from was it Nevada, and then you had Angus King as well, and voting to keep the government open shows that there's already cracks in their coalition. The fact that you have Chuck Schumer, who has all the same reasons as he had last time to pass this, who's willing to fight now because he's been forced to, but he intellectually understands that they're trying to have a hostage negotiation when they have no hostages, shows that the leadership is not actually behind this. They're just saying, all right, Liz Warren, all right, AOC, you can drive this train for a while, but I'm not going to try and let you take me off a cliff with all the banners waving. Not if it actually causes permanent, or at least semi-permanent for Washington, damage to the progressive cause. So I think that the Democrats will start to peel off, and the fact that they already before it started in yesterday's vote or 2 days ago's vote decided yesterday's vote that three of them total we're going to peel off, shows that there are more people there who understand this than are willing to say so. And they're all looking around left and right, these Democrats, saying, we need enough people to agree to a deal where we can save some face, where all the blame doesn't just focus on a few of us. They want to spread it out, because politicians, of course, are very risk averse. They don't want the blame. But they also need to win their next election. And in order to do that, they can't just court moderates. They have to get their base. And their base is kind of crazy. Their base is just baying for blood. Like, literally, we've seen the polls. They want violence. They're okay with violence. So they're definitely okay with a couple of days of shutdown. But The idea of a 2-week shutdown seems so distant because Democrats just don't have it. And at that point, Donald Trump starts launching missiles. At this point, they're playing back and forth. They're a little slap and tickle. Maybe 5 days would be my guess still.
A little slap and tickle, classic. Just gonna warm up to it. I think that the flip side of this is that for President Trump, what is existential and what needs to happen, and to flip all of this nationally, is to take those benefits away. We simply cannot have illegals getting benefits from the United States government, and taking that away should be a dividing line, because that also goes to the overarching master plan, which is that Democrats shouldn't be counting these people in the census. They should be not part of the system. Stripping that out of the system ensures that the Democrats will lose Jill for a long time to come, and they won't be able to to really pull the plan that they wanted to pull, which is that they'd have generations of Democrats forevermore. So that Trump has to hold the line on that.
Yeah, don't worry though. Maxine Waters is just saying, "Oh, we're not going to put illegals over the American people. You're not going to get me to say that."
You really, it's two master plans, right? You have Trump's master plan is we're done with this. Their master plan, we all know, was to continue this.
I see Republicans potentially as some kind of chip saying we will agree to begin negotiations on expanding the Obamacare tax credits or extending them, but they're going to be it's going to be a separate vehicle, because we're not giving you any money for hostages you don't have. You don't even have bullets in your gun. We're just going to come in and say no, and you're going to lose this fight. That's the secret about shutdowns. Because everyone is the loser and winner are already predetermined. It's just how long we're going to stretch out this drama. Democrats need to put on a play for their audience, but they know the ending. So there's no off ramps except for surrender. How far are they going to go before they just pull over and realize that the cops have them?
It's all theater. It's all bread and circuses. We need to share the arrows. We spend a lot of time talking about politics and culture and all of the craziness that's going on in the world. But this is different because you know what? If you're a woman or there's a woman out there that you care about, you need to know about Share the Arrows. It's coming up quick now. It's October 11th right here in Dallas. It's hosted by Blaze TV's own Allie Beth Stuckey, and it's built to encourage, equip, and speak truth into women who are trying to stand firm in today's world. So if you've been craving real encouragement and biblical truth, then this is for you. If you're a man out there and you're thinking about the woman in your life who needs this, you really do want to send her to this, because this is a moment where we know that the culture is pulling us in the wrong direction, and this is our chance to reset and get grounded in the truth. All the tickets and details are at sharethearrows.com. That's sharethearrows.com. Let's switch topics here. J6 and COVID, what do they have in common? It might seem like a stretch, but no. A bombshell DHS probe has found that the Biden-era TSA officials secretly weaponized watch lists to punish Americans who opposed mask mandates, which was all of us, and they were also linked to J6 while, of course, protecting their friends. So we see this is the new article out here from TSA, and they said Biden's TSA used the J6 protests as an excuse to target dozens of U.S. citizens. It says these Americans were watch-listed and harassed despite there being no evidence of wrongdoing or illegal behavior. This targeted campaign of harassment continued through June of 2021, 6 months after the events in question, despite no clear or imminent threat to aviation security. So now we're seeing that Congress is demanding accountability and a full DOJ investigation into this abuse of power. But Matt, doesn't this just actually go through and confirm what we've been saying for years about the security state has just been now turned inward on the American citizens themselves? This was never supposed to be the plan, and yet we're still here.
I mean, you got to chalk it up to some of our libertarian friends who we disagree with on a lot. Man, I mean, there were no truer words spoken about the Department of Homeland Security being created, this entire security apparatus being created post 9/11 than this one. I mean, here is an organization that was supposed to stop terrorism in America after everyone was scared after 9/11. We wanted to prevent that. And now, now you have you're following people on flights who are Americans because they disagree with your politics over what turned out to be really some silly things, right? I mean, masks, for instance. Here's something that anyone with common sense could have told you something about at the time or beforehand. Fauci was, of course, multiple minds about it. But the truth of this is, though, it's a very serious program. You have people being surveilled and watched. And that when it comes to their travel, I mean, this is a big deal. And now, though, we do have to say the reason all this is being overturned is because one of those people is now in charge of national intelligence at D-N.Y, and that's Tulsi. But this is a great example of what they were doing, what needs to be rolled back. And you have to think. I mean, I believe this was a $200 million a year program. They're spending it on watching all these people. Well, who are all those people who are working for it? Because they all need to get the hell out of there. They were willing to do this, and they thought this was A-OK. Those are people I don't want anywhere near the federal government again. So it shows you, there's a turning back, but there's still a long way to go. It's a good thing that we're getting rid of it. Yeah,
so it's the Quiet Skies program that we're referencing here. But Chris, how insane is this? Like, that all of us out there, that if you refuse to wear a mask, oh man, you want to get on an airplane? You could be treated like a terrorist at that point in time. Like, this is not what these programs were set up to do.
One of the reasons my wife fell in love with me when we were dating is I showed her that you could just do things. We went grocery shopping. I just took off my mask, put a 6-pack in my cart, and cracked the first one while we shopped, and no one said anything. She was shocked. I was like, don't you notice the shoplifters in broad daylight? No one says anything to them. Like, have a beer, pay for it on the way out, but then don't wear the mask. No one's going to say anything. The airplanes are a big difference. Airplanes are where I behave because I know they can take away that right. If you kick off a stewardess, you can have air marshals waiting for you and police waiting for you when you land, and you're not getting on another airplane. We also remember that this COVID stuff, if you disagreed with it, you weren't just a dissident, you were an enemy of the state. I mean, the American left that stylizes themselves as part of the La Resistance were literally phoning in tips on children on playgrounds and priests holding Catholic masses and Protestant services. You're an enemy of the state. So this $200 million a year program, mind you, Quiet Skies, not a single shred of evidence they can provide that they ever prevented a terrorist attack, that they ever unfoiled a criminal plot. So they tell you, listen, this is about stopping crime, which does take place. There is trafficking, there is smuggling. This is about stopping terrorism, which all of us are old enough to remember does happen with airplanes and is important. But this program ended up just being used to surveil Tulsi Gabbard, a sitting congresswoman, former presidential candidate, an officer in the Army Reserves. She's being surveilled and harassed in a way that the Chinese harass dissidents, where they're following you and they're letting you know they're following you and they're trying to make you uncomfortable. And you have our Democratic senator's husband who's placed on a watch list and starts getting harassed. A simple phone call changes that because they decided they didn't want the heat. And that kind of shows you right there. A phone call from a senator always changes things. If you forget your passport getting renewed and you realize you have to travel in 24 hours, your only option for getting through is calling a U.S. senator friend because they can get it done. But this shows you that they didn't want that heat attracted to that program. They didn't want to have to actually justify what they were doing with this program. So they said, let's let him go. Put him on a special list where he's fine to go. And they never expected little Tulsi Gabbard to end up as the director of national intelligence. They never expected Donald Trump to end up back in the White House. They didn't expect the FBI and the DOJ to be taken over by people who were going to read their emails and look at their files and question their record. They were so convinced that with this power that they had, it was just a liberal ascendancy forever, that they got kind of sloppy in their tyranny. And it was the stupidest tyranny. For airplanes, remember how we had to stand up one at a time, row by row, because that would protect us from COVID? Everyone gets annoyed by the hustle and bustle and the lines when you're trying to get off a plane, but the moves they would make, or the restaurants you would go to where you had to order on an iPad and then put it through your credit card, and then you could walk up to the bar and they'd pour you a beer. That was an interaction, but we had to protect ourselves from COVID. All the small minds obsessed with systems. The Democrats weaponized this. They weaponized it against political opponents. They weaponized it against dissidents. And the only results they got are getting caught. And I would like to see, like Matt said, a lot more people fired.
I want to reiterate the fact when Chris Bedford says he doesn't follow a lot of the rules, we can tell you that's pretty much true. And they're infamous, Chris Bedford COVID stories slapping the table. There's a lot. I don't know if we're ever going to get to them here on the show, but the people at some point in time, they need to hear all of the Bedford COVID stories.
Battle of Martin's Tavern will go down in history.
These are inspiring tales, inspiring stories. Really, we should add to this. I mean, this is multiple Republican members of Congress were targeted. We don't know who they all were. So when you say political opposition, that's exactly what was going on. It wasn't just Tulsi. My favorite part of the airplane travel during COVID, though, by far, was the fact that we all just intuited. We realized that. You couldn't eat in the rest of the plane, right? Because you get COVID if people were eating and opening their mouths. But we all know that the sacred space of first class, of business class, is a safe one, safe from disease, and you could still eat there all you wanted. And that just said it all, you know? I mean, it's a magical, safe space. We all know this.
Well, and
you're safe from COVID.
when they come around and pass the pretzels out, you could, some people, they had different ways of going about this. Did you keep your mask on and then like pull it down to eat a pretzel and then like put your mask back? Or were you a rebel and just as soon as they passed out the food, you're like, I'm not wearing it anymore?
No,
we were all rebels, I'm sure.
I took the pretzels so that I just take the mask off. Remember, they'd come up to you, you just put a drink down and have the mask off.
They banned nips. You used to be able to bring your own liquor on airplanes, which was my father's favorite hack in the world. Just bring a sleeve of them. And they said, enough is enough, guys. No more of that. And, well, COVID allows us now to be able to buy alcohol in a lot of places and restaurants and take it home with us. I think something that got out of fashion. A lot of places you can drink outside. You can no longer bring your own nips on an airline, and that is just a travesty against American liberty.
And all of this adds up to why we don't trust institutions in this country anymore. We can't trust them if they're going through and they're going to have mask mandates. And that alone is bad. But then they're going to turn around and use that and justify people being put on, secret government programs. You guys, I'm glad at least we have Donald Trump in office, that we can actually get to some of the bottom of this stuff because, kudos to Kristi Noem, who went out and closed this program down back on June 5th. So we don't have to worry about this. But again, as everything else in the Biden administration is going, we are only now beginning to learn the depths of all of the insanity and the weaponization of government against the American people. Bedford, sometime soon, we're going to get the rest of these COVID stories from you.
Maybe when I finally make it out to Texas in a few weeks.
Sounds good. Until then, we'll see you tomorrow. When we come back, we'll have John Eastman. We'll get to the bottom of more of the government weaponization with one of the best voices in America next. The Comey indictment is seismic. For years, the deep state, the weaponized FBI, DOJ, and their media allies worked to sabotage President Trump and spy on conservatives and rig the political system in favor of their elite friends. But for now, for the first time, one of the main players is actually facing the law, and it's showing, hopefully, that nobody is untouchable. So here to shed some light on Comey's indictment is John Eastman. He's a former constitutional law professor and dean, and he's a senior fellow with the Claremont Institute. So John, thanks so much for joining us. So when we look at this Comey indictment, I mean, everybody, these were major headlines everywhere. So what are we actually looking at? What are we finally seeing? What kind of moment is this?
Well, if it begins and ends with this particular indictment, I don't think it's a big moment. But if this is the first domino in a series of dominoes, this is a huge transformation of holding people accountable for what I think is the biggest political scandal in our nation's history. The indictment against James Comey that was handed down just a few days ago is limited to him lying to Congress, not the initial lie, because that was beyond the statute of limitations, but the subsequent lie in a exchange with Senator Cruz, where he reaffirmed his prior testimony that he did not authorize and had no involvement in the leak of the material to a reporter that led to the investigation, the Mueller investigation. And now we know it was all phony. It was all crossfire hurricane set up to try and take out President Trump. But just lying to Congress, that's pretty milquetoast compared to what the real conspiracy at issue here.
Yeah, so let's talk about that. I mean, because we could say, look, these are mild charges in a way. It's not even the initial lie, but okay, he's lying to Congress, and they did that to a few high-profile people on the right, and that is a violation of the law. But there's probably a lot of other things that a lot of people in our audience would want to see him punished for. So if it is so mild, I mean, why bother at all? And then also this why was this so rushed?
Well, it was so rushed because the prior U.S. attorney for the Eastern District of Virginia, Eric Siebert, looks to have been deliberately slow walking the indictment so that it would run the clock on the statute of limitations, which expired on September 30th. And when he was removed from his position because of that, a new acting U.S. attorney came in and immediately presented it to the grand jury, and the grand jury found grounds to indict. So I think this is the placeholder indictment, if you will. The much bigger indictment that I hope is coming involves a whole lot of additional people, and it's very complicated, massive conspiracy dating back to the Crossfire Hurricane scam in 2015 and 2016 that led to the spying on the major political opponent by our own government. It led to continuing to spy on him after he was elected and even after he was inaugurated. And the people that were involved in this were at the highest level of our government, the heads of our intelligence community, the head of the FBI, the head of the CIA. The evidence is starting to implicate all of them. Including everybody that was present at that, infamous meeting on January 3rd, 2017, with Attorney General Lynch, Deputy Attorney General Sally Yates, NSA Director Mike Rogers, the National Security Advisor Susan Rice, Comey, Clapper, Brennan, and Biden and Obama themselves. We're all in that meeting where they're trying to figure out, okay, how are we going to cover up what we just did to this guy who's coming in is going to have access to all this as the new incoming president. And then, Sally Yates writes a cover their asses memo to say, President Obama said, follow the book. Well, there was no part of the book that they were following here. The evidence that we already have strongly suggests that this was a conspiracy to continue to go after President Trump and cover up what they had done to stop him from getting the office in the first place.
So we saw the career prosecutors, and they went through, and they had reportedly prepared this legal memo, and all of them got together and they concluded, there was insufficient evidence of a crime by Comey, right? Of course, that's what they're going to come out and say. But doesn't that actually just go through and prove even more that this was all political in the first place?
Well, it shows to me that the deep state is doing everything it can to cover itself and protect its own. Look, he lied to Congress. That seems pretty clear. And if they're playing semantic games, this is the same crew that said Hillary Clinton's destruction of classified documents on her private unsecured server. It was not, there was no basis for crime. That's an outrage. Just talk to members of the military who took a picture of themselves with a submarine in the background getting prosecuted for disclosing classified information. So they've been covering for themselves, the deep state, for a long time. And I've not read the memo. I don't think it's been made public yet. But what we know is a pretty clear-cut crime, lying to Congress and obstructing its investigation into what went on with this massive cover-up. And, those are pretty serious crimes in and of themselves. But it's a thread of a sweater that's becoming unraveled as we see now. The Arctic frost documents that were disclosed by Senator Grassley a week or two ago. All of this stuff is all part and parcel of the same. I call it a coup because it's a coup that's been in the works for 10 years. First to prevent President Trump from getting elected in 2016, and then to try and kneecap his administration after he got elected, quite arguably to steal his reelection in 2020, and to launch, frivolous criminal charges against him and a lot of others beyond 2020 to stop him from ever getting into office again. And I'll guarantee you there are folks inside the administration that are continuing that obstruction effort. And I think the whole lot of them got to be caught up like a bunch of fish caught in a net. I mean, this is a huge problem when the deep state doesn't think it's accountable to the people that we elect to run the government.
Yeah, John, I mean, my concern and that of many people in the audience right now is that this is the story of the last 10 years of American political life. And if there isn't justice brought to these people, if there isn't, conspiracy charges, brought against them, then what the hell are we doing here? And so, I'm prepared to talk, publicly about this increasingly if we don't actually see more action. And the concern here is that, okay, great, before the deadline, we filed this. The president certainly seemed to express some frustration with what was going on before before Comey was indicted. But we have to see a plan. This isn't a personal attack on anyone in the administration. We have to see evidence of a plan to actually do this in a systematic way. I just wonder where are we at right now?
Well, and a lot of people are growing increasingly frustrated with Attorney General Bondi and even the FBI for not having these things already done. But look, let me come to their defense a bit. Now, maybe 3-4 months from now, I'll quit coming to their defense. But in the meantime, there are two very important things that people should be aware of here. This is, if we're right about what went on here, this is a massive conspiracy involving a lot of people. Much of it occurred 10 years ago, so it's beyond the statute of limitations. So problem number one is, how do you connect the dots to keep the conspiracy within the statute of limitations so you can prosecute it? So the referral from D-N.Y, Tulsi Gabbard last month for criminal prosecution, and then the convening of a grand jury, which, reportedly is down in Florida because it implicates the ridiculous raid on Mar-a-Lago, which was within the statute of limitations. So that gets us there. But you've also got, these statutes, these conspiracy statutes, Section 241 of Title 18, and conspiracy against rights, conspiracy to commit offense or defraud the United States, 18 U.S.C. 371, major fraud against the United States, 18 U.S.C. 1031, threats to prevent officers from performing duties, Section 1985. Depriving individuals of civil rights, and even RICO. These are complicated conspiracy statutes, and this team has to get it right the first time, because if they try and bring charges against somebody and they make a misstep and they get thrown out, there's going to be a much more difficult road to hoe bringing them back again. And so you got to cross the T's and dot all the I's and get it in the right jurisdiction to get it out of the intensely partisan DC grand jury pool and judge pool, and get it in a place where you'll have a more neutral assessment by ordinary American citizens. And so that all of that's very complicated, and it takes a while to put together a massive case like that, particularly when you've got people in the deep state trying to obstruct you, and in the prior administration trying to hide the evidence of what they did. And, it's starting to come out, and they're starting to say, whoa, we got a whole new bag of evidence here. Let's make sure that's included in this as well. So it's complicated. And, and the other thing is, look, most of the people that are line officers in the Department of Justice tend to be pro-government, which means tend to be pro-Democrat. And you can't ramp up enough staffing to be able to get people that are trustworthy to be able to pursue this. So there's a limited number of people and a massive amount of evidence that needs to be sorted through. So they're drinking from fire hoses, and I give them a lot of slack. And I think this is the first step. And I think by the end of the year, we're going to see some other major developments as well.
Well, John, I would be remiss if we didn't pick your legal brain on the Supreme Court before we let you go, because we've already seen some major rulings this year in terms of at least reining in some federal power. So what should conservatives be on the lookout? What cases should they be looking for in terms of the Supreme Court?
Well, the big one that I'm following very closely is their now request to address the birthright citizenship executive order on the merits. Of course, lower courts have been issuing nationwide injunctions left and right against everything the president is trying to do. But look, I mean, in the 4 years that President Trump was out of office, his team, they weren't sitting on their thumbs waiting for the next election. They were preparing for this moment and preparing not only the legal arguments and the language of the executive orders, but preparing to vigorously defend those executive orders in courts that they knew they were going to be hostile. And going up on the emergency docket to the U.S. Supreme Court to block nationwide injunctions, that takes a lot of effort on a very quick turnaround, and they've been fully prepared for it. So we're going to see that. We're going to see more about President Trump's firings and whether the executive branch is really under the control of the head of the executive branch, the President of the United States. I remind people, look, the Constitution doesn't say the president has the executive powers that Congress deems he should have, and everybody else that they deem otherwise can exercise executive powers. It says the executive power is vested in the president, period, end of story. And so he's reasserting that authority that the Constitution gives him. And people that don't like it, they like independent, unaccountable agencies because they run amok without any responsibility and ability of the American people to call them out. And the president's trying to challenge that. The spending, we've got $37 trillion in debt. That's $100,000 for every person in the country. Most of that was spent unconstitutionally because it exceeds Congress's power. So I think with the DOGE cuts and now the government shutdown cuts and firings, we're going to see some serious revocation of that notion that Congress can spend on whatever it wants. And maybe the courts get back in enforcing the limits on the spending power. So all of these things are in play now. And I think we've got a Supreme Court, largely majority of originalists, that are going to start taking seriously these kind of arguments.
I can't tell the audience enough how hard John has worked his whole life to push these things forward. And now we are on the cusp of some incredibly important cases that are, threatening the deep state. And that's an amazing thing to see. Thanks.
Thank you very much.
Yes. Thanks so much, John. We'll catch you next time. Yeah, I don't know how we're getting these, Matt, but some of these not only conservative victories, but then you see the 6-3 rulings that we see, and it's mind-blowing. We're taking it, though, while we can get it. Something else when we come back that's mind-boggling. AOC, she's back in the news. We haven't had her on the show in quite some time. We'll get your reactions to the Dems government shutdown next.
And I saw some Republican members of Congress saying, oh, well, if we have this shutdown, it's because of AOC. Well, if that's the case, my office is open and you are free to walk in and negotiate with me directly. Because what I'm not going to do is tolerate 4 million uninsured Americans because Donald Trump decided one day that he wants to just make sure that kids are dying because they don't have access to insurance. That's what's not going to happen. And so if those senators think that we're having a shutdown because of me, they're free to enter my office and negotiate, because what we're not going to do is allow all of millions of people in this country to not be able to afford their insulin and their chemotherapy. So come strike a deal with me if that's what they really think is going on.
Is it wrong? Like, I kind of missed her. Like, we haven't had AOC on in forever. Like, Jasmine Crockett is no AOC. She never will be. She's trying to be AOC. It's never going to happen. Like, she's dumb. Don't get me wrong. She's dumb, but I kind of missed her.
I kind of like her little rhetorical maneuver there, where she's all of a sudden the ruler of the Democratic Party. I mean, that was a brilliant little move. She has her ways. She was chosen as a star. She's always been a star. She was chosen from a bunch of people who were auditioning. So. Yeah, she's a good character role.
She watches the show. She knows that people aren't following Chuck Schumer anymore, so she's like, the door is open, and whose door is that? That's my door. Open. My door is open. So I asked you on X today that AOC's door is open. If you could ask her anything, what would you ask her? Let's go ahead and get to the replies. Johnny starts us off and says, why should someone who broke numerous laws to trespass into this country get free medical care when I'm paying $17,000 a year for insurance? I'll take a bourbon neat while I wait an answer. There were a lot of those reminding us that AOC was a bartender. A lot of those in the comments today.
Well, the answer is very clear. That's because you're not going to vote for her.
No, it's not happening.
And that's the way they play.
That is. Let's go ahead and get to Roy. We're not having devil's advocate, Matt, today, though. That's not happening. I'm ex-naying that already. Let's go ahead and get to Roy, then, who says that I'd sit down with a copy of The Case for Socialism, written in 1909, and ask her to refute its contents. Now, that is a good one, right? I always love, they're like, oh, put two pictures on X of a great battle, and it's like AOC and then like Thomas Sowell, Basic Economics. And that one, to me, like in my world, there are a few things that are funnier than that, to me, than that.
Yeah, well, I don't think she's going to refute it, man. I don't think she's going to refute the book. I think she's going to say, man, it's pretty good. Maybe she's like, I read that already. It's here in my large book collection in my office.
Here, welcome to my TED Talk.
The door is open, and all of a sudden you realize she's been quietly reading all these things for all these years.
Yes, she's going to understand a lot that's going on there, which replies, the next reply fits right in with that. Dog. Yes, of course, dog, who's replying to us. Sorry, I don't speak commie. Fair. You know, you want to talk to AOC, you want to have a conversation with her, but you're not a communist. So it's a little hard. It's a little hard to get an entire conversation out there in the open.
Her door is open, and no one is going to say, hey, I just go in and ask her out. Not a single person. Okay, I get it.
If Alex Stein were here, the comments would have been entirely different.
Yeah. Well, yes, I'm not going to say anything about that.
All right, let's get back to how we win then, because it's not just AOC, the door is open, communist drinks. We actually have to figure out how to take our country back. And it's an important, very important thing. And so what do we need to demand? What kind of results are we looking for at this moment in time?
We want to see Alex Stein in every congressional office asking questions. Now, I think it is time where we're all thinking very serious thoughts about whether or not we're actually going to achieve the goals of the mandate, whether the mandate is going to be implemented or not. And we've seen throughout the show today many examples of this. I mean, in the shutdown, right? Are we going to use the shutdown as a way to actually get rid of a lot of these ridiculous bureaucratic jobs or not, and restructure things? With Comey, are we really going to start going after these characters from the last 10 years, or is all of this just talk on talk shows? And we've seen progress, right? We've seen some real things happen, and the more that real things happen, the more you see the pushback from the other side, and things are ratcheting up. I will say that is happening because the administration obviously has many serious people within it who are working very hard to move things forward. But we still have to push and demand from the administration that they need to implement these things. We need to see a lot more people be prosecuted for actual crime in the past. And if we don't see that, then we're simply not serious. Good news is we know that Trump wants that, but we got to see it. And we're going to start chimping out on this show if we don't.
Yeah, and we heard John Eastman saying he'll give the DOJ a little bit more time. Listen, if he will, we'll give them a little bit more time too. But that leash, I fear, is getting shorter and shorter and shorter. Yeah. This can't just be the first domino. It has to be an entire series of them starting to fall. We'll see you back here tomorrow.